Hare Rama. Hare. We continue reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, text 44. Purvabhyasena teneva
पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव
kriyate hi avasho pisa
क्रियते हि अवसोऽपि सा
jigyasur api yogasya
जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य
shabda brahma tivartate.
शब्दः ब्रह्मति वर्तते.
Can someone please read?
Okay, I can read.
Okay.
Translation. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Advanced yogis are not very much attracted to the rituals of the scriptures, but they automatically become attracted to the yoga principles, which can elevate them to complete Krishna consciousness, the highest yoga perfection. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, such disregard of Vedic rituals by the advanced transcendentalists is explained as follows. Aho Bhatashva Pako to Gariyan यज्ञजिह्वाग्रे वर्ताते नमः तुभ्यं तेपुस्तपस्ते जुहुः सस्नुरार्य ब्रह्मणुर्नमा grantati yete. O Lord, persons who chant the holy names of your Lordship are far, far advanced in spiritual life, even if born in families of dog eaters. Such chanters have undoubtedly performed all kinds of austerities and sacrifices, bathed in all sacred places, and finished all scriptural studies. The famous example of this was presented by Lord Chaitanya, who accepted Thakura Haridasa as one of his most important disciples. Although Thakura Haridasa happened to take his birth in a Muslim family, he was elevated to the post of Namacharya by Lord Chaitanya due to his rigidly attended principle of chanting 300,000 holy names of the Lord daily. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And because he chanted the holy name of the Lord constantly, it is understood that in his previous life he must have passed through all the ritualistic methods of the Vedas, known as Brahma. Unless, therefore, one is purified, one cannot take to the principle of Krishna consciousness or become engaged in chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So, because Arjuna was asking, no, what happens to the unsuccessful yogi? And Krishna was saying, if someone has done, he has progressed in the process of yoga, Krishna consciousness. After a short time, if he's fallen, next birth he gets birth in heavenly planets. Then after that, he comes back to the earth in the family of a Brahmana or a Vaishnava or a good merchant family, good business family. And again, he's given the chance to continue with his Krishna consciousness. And then somebody who had progressed a lot in his Krishna consciousness, then he gets birth in a very great family of transcendentalists. Like from generations, they are pure devotees of the Lord. And his, of course, a consciousness, whatever work we do in Krishna consciousness is never lost. So, and so he still remembers his consciousness. of the previous life, the divine consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And he immediately again takes up the principles of devotional service. He's not interested in um, he's not interested in the rituals of the Vedas. So there, one may say, well, the rituals are there in the Vedas, then what's with that? You see, these rituals in the Vedas are there, but they bring, by following the rituals, we can just go up to the heavenly planets. Uh, it's not going to take us out of the material world. So it's just going to take us out of uh, I'm sorry, it's not going to take us out. It'll just give us to the heavenly planet. Just one moment, please. So, but the devotee, he takes up the chanting of the holy name again, hearing and chanting. He remembers that he has already acquired that consciousness. So he takes up that hearing and chanting. And Bhagavatam says that one who chants the holy name of Krishna, one who's chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, is far, far advanced, even if he's born in a low family. And a person who's chanting the holy name of the Lord means he's performed, the Vedas prescribe different kinds of charities, sacrifices, certain kinds of bathing at certain period of time to get some auspicious result, certain kind of studies. One who's chanting the holy name means he's done all that, because the goal of all this is to come to the point to chant the holy name. So if one is chanting, means he's already done all the dan, punya, all the bathing. He's done the austerities, the penances. He studied the Vedas. So Prabhupada is giving the example of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur is the Namacharya. He was chanting the whole day almost. Whole day he was chanting on 172 or 192 rounds. So he was born in a Muslim family, and he was chanting the whole day. So Lord Chaitanya called him the Namacharya. Mm. And so Prabhupada is saying that because he's chanting whole day means in his previous life he must have already done all the rituals, whatever needed to be done. And now he's just taken up the process. Krishna says, Vedescha sarver aham eva vedya. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. So one who has studied the Vedas will surrender to Krishna. Then Bhagavatam is saying, chant the holy name. Those who are intelligent in the persons who are intelligent in the age of Kali are gonna worship the Lord, who comes in the golden form by chanting the holy name. Bhagavatam is also saying this age of Kali is an ocean of faults, but there's one good thing in which there is chanting the holy name. So we can see that all the scriptures are telling us to chant the holy name. So one who is um, chanting the holy name is actually studied all the scriptures. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So the way of perfection in this age of Kali is by chanting everything. Prayatnat yatmanastu
Prayatnat yatmanastu
yogi samshuddhakil visha
yogi samsudha kilbisa
aneka janma samsiddhis
aneka
samsiddhas.
janma Aneka Janma Samsiddhas.
So yati param gatim.
Tatyate Param Gatam. Translation.
When sorry, yes.
And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. A person born in a particularly righteous, aristocratic, or sacred family becomes conscious of his favorable condition for executing yoga practice. With determination, therefore, he begins his unfinished task, and thus he completely cleanses himself of all material contaminations. When he is finally free from all contaminations, he attains the supreme perfection, Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the perfect stage of being freed of all contamination. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yesham tev antagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam vrata. After many, many births of executing pious activities, when one is completely freed from all contaminations and from all illusory dualities, one becomes engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord.
So Krishna is saying, so then he progresses, the devotee. He's progressing in his consciousness. Nothing is wasted. And then he gets perfection. So he begins his Krishna consciousness. He may not be able to finish it in one life, but he continues with it. He continues with his Krishna consciousness and he gets perfection. Now, here in this verse, many, many birds of executing pious activities. So, then one comes to the point of devotional service. So, these are not ordinary pious activities. This is not pious activities for getting some material benefit, but this is uh, like agyata sukriti, when one does some service for the devotee. Unknowingly, when one does some service for the devotee, maybe he's, bought a book or just helped the devotee in some way, done some service. Then when he does more and more of this agyata sukriti, then he engages in devotional service. Because no ordinary pious activity can be compared to devotional service. Devotional service is on the spiritual platform. So then the devotees were asking Prabhupada once, oh, that means Prabhupada, we have done a lot of pious activities in our past life. That's why we've come to Krishna. Prabhupada said, I am making your pious activities. So we can see it's the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that he is giving an opportunity for us to engage in devotional service, to get us the Sukriti. It's the devotee, the pure devotee, who helps us get the Sukriti. He gives us this devotional service. So it's by the mercy of the devotee. Otherwise, how would we come to devotional service, Bhakti comes from bhakta. Devotional service comes from devotee. So by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we are engaging in devotional service. Is that okay?
Yes.
Tapasvibhyo dhiko yogi
Tapasvibhyo dhiko yogi
jnanebhyo matodhika
jnanibhyo mato dhika
karmebhyaschadiko yogi
karmibhyaschadiko yogi
tasmad yogi bhavarjuna.
tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Translation. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist and greater than the fruitative worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is
Haribol, Neetu can't hear you.
yoga, and when it is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called
Sorry, we were
Bhakti
not
Yoga.
able to hear you. Could you
Ah,
please again begin? We were not able to
ah,
hear you.
sorry, I'll say it again.
Mm.
I'll start from the beginning. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitative activities, it is called karma yoga. When it is predominantly empirical, it is called Gyan yoga. And when it is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga or Krishna consciousness is the ultimate perfection of all yoga, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. Aestheticism without self knowledge is imperfect. Empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme Lord is also imperfect, and fruitative work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here is Bhakti Yoga, and this is still more clearly explained in the next verse.
So Krishna is saying, yogi. So Srila Prabhupada is helping us understand who is this yogi that Krishna is trying to tell us. Because he's saying yogi is greater than ascetic. Ascetic is one who's performing the meditation process. Greater than the empiricist. Empiricist means one who's taking the path of knowledge. Greater than the fruitive worker. When we are working because we want to enjoy the result, that's karma yoga. Empiricist, that's Gyan Yogi, somebody who's going in the path of knowledge. Ascetic is called a yogi, Dhyan Yogi or Ashtanga Yogi. So, but Krishna is saying you become a yogi because this is higher than others. And he's telling Arjuna, in oh Arjuna, be a yogi in all circumstances. So the yogi here that is Krishna is saying is Bhakti Yogi, Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, we are trying to revive our devotional relationship with Krishna. Each of us have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. And that can be revived only by the process of devotional service, not by any other process. We may be following any other process of, we may be following the process of Ashtanga Yoga or the process of Jnana Yoga. But we have to come to the point of surrender to Krishna to be able to get the benefit of the process that we have been doing, to get the complete fruit of the process that we are following. We have to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga. So Prabhupada is saying it's more clearly explained in the next verse. Yogi nam api sarvesham.
Yoginam api sarvesham
Matkatenantaratmana
mat gate nantar atmana
Shraddhavan bhajate yomam
श्रद्धावन भजत श्रद्धावान भजाते जो यो माम
Tame yukta tamo mata.
समय युक्तो तमो mata. Translation. And of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the verb bhaj, which is used when there is no need of service. The English word
There is
worship
a
cannot
need.
be.
When
Sorry,
there
sorry, there
is
is
need.
need. Yeah, sorry, there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaj. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is specially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod and may be called discourteous. But when one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do this, he falls down. The Bhagavatam confirms this as follows. Ya esham purusham sakshat atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajanti avajananti tanad brashta patini adha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse also, the word bhajanti is used. Therefore, bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or to any other common living entity. The word avajananti used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is also found in the Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti mam mudha. Only the fools and rascals deride the
Right.
supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions toward the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self realization. Karma yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called Gyan Yoga. When Gyan Yoga increases in meditation on the super soul by different physical processes, and the mind is on him, it is called Ashtanga Yoga. And when one surpasses the Ashtanga Yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it is called Bhakti Yoga, the culmination. Factually, Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name. Karma Yoga, Gyan Yogi, or Dhyan Yogi. Raj Yogi, Hatha Yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of Bhakti Yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become conscious is the highest stage of yoga. Just as when we speak of Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountain, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Sham Sundara, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower garlanded, illuminating all sides in his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahma Jyotir. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as a son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. Thus, this stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by bhakti yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literature. Yashya deva parabhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tatyate kathita he arthaha prakashante mahatmanmana. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Bhaktir Yashya Bhajanam Tat Iha Mutropadhi Nairasa Yena Musmin Mana Kalpanam Etad Eva Karyamyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Karmya. Gopala Tapani Upanishad. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfection stage of the yoga system. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports to the 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Dhyan Yoga.
And then Krishna is saying now, who is the highest yogi? He's saying, who's the highest yogi? He's saying the one who always, with great faith, means one who has faith in Krishna and who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself. Means he is a devotee of Krishna. He's always thinking of Krishna. He's following Krishna's instructions. He's rendering transcendental devotional service to Krishna. He's the most intimately united with me in yoga, Krishna is saying. So the highest yogi is the bhakti yogi. This is Krishna's opinion. Because when he's saying me, means that's Krishna himself. So he's saying one who has great faith in me, who is following my instruction, who's engaging in devotional service to me. Is the highest yogi. Because there are different types of yogis. There's the Gyan yogis who are following the process of knowledge. There are the Karma yogis who are following the process of doing the work. Then there are the Ashtanga yogis. They're following the path of mysticism. But Krishna is saying, come, whatever path you're following, come to the point of bhakti. Become the highest yogi. Yes, as Srila Prabhupada is saying here, that how there are rungs of the ladder. So Krishna has been explaining the different types of yoga till now. The the gradual elevation, how we go from one step of the ladder, we rise to another, we rise to another. So one may begin with karma yoga, working without fruitive results, means working without the desire to enjoy the result of the activity. Work, we all have to work. But one may come to the point of Nishkam Karma Yoga, that he's working without desire to enjoy the result of his own work. And this may give him this, because now he has no desire to enjoy the result of his work, it gives him detachment and he gives him knowledge. So he comes to the point of Gyan Yoga. Then as he progresses in this path, then he comes to understand the Paramatma who is in the heart. he realizes the Paramatma. He's engaged in meditating on the Paramatma. So that's called Ashtanga Yoga. And then finally, as one continues in the process of spiritual life, one ultimately comes to understand that God is a person and that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, and one engages in devotional service to Him. So this is called Bhakti Yoga. By engaging in Bhakti Yoga, we get the results of all the other yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyan Yoga. We get all the results by engaging in Bhakti Yoga. Krishna himself is saying, come to the point of Bhakti. So if one sticks to a particular ladder step, he's named like that. He's called either a Karma Yogi, or he's called a Jnana Yogi, or Dhyan Yogi. So, but Krishna is saying, come to the point of Bhakti. And Bhakti begins by hearing and chanting. Krishna is saying, come to that point. Now, Karma Yogi also, many people may say we are working, but we have no desire to enjoy the result of our work. Nishkam Karma Yoga. But they may not know who to offer the results to. Because the results are going to be there. And if we don't want to enjoy it, but so who should be offered to? Krishna saying, offer it to him. He says to Arjuna, whatever you do it for me, O Arjuna. We are going to hear it later. So here Srila Prabhupada is helping us understand the word bhajate. Bhajate means when there is a need of service. So someone may say bhajate is same as worship. But Prabhupada is helping us understand bhajate and worship are not exactly the same, because worship means, we are showing some adoration to someone, we are showing respect or honor. So worship can be applied to a great personality, to a demigod, But bhajate can be used only for Krishna. That is service with love and faith. So we may avoid to worship a great personality, and we may only be called disrespectful. But if we avoid to engage in devotion, engage in serving the Supreme Lord, then the Shastras are condemning us. Why? Because each and every one of us is a part and parcel of God. So we have this eternal loving relationship with God. Part and parcel of God means we have a relationship with Him. Now we have to act in that relationship. As there is a loving relationship between son and father. So they act in that relationship. No? Similarly, we have an eternal loving relationship. It's not based on the body, but it's we, the soul, living entity. We have a loving relationship with Krishna, and we should be engaged in this relationship. So Bhagavatam is saying, one who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the benevolent Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. So just as we have material duties, we have spiritual duties. Because after all, we are spirit souls. And our eternal position is that we have eternal loving relationship with Krishna. We are eternally Krishna's servants. And we are eternally engaged in this devotional service. So Bhagavatam is saying, one who does not render service to Krishna is not doing his duty towards Krishna, will fall down from the constitutional position. Our constitutional position is that we are parts and parcels of Krishna. We are eternal servants of Krishna. Then we start thinking we are the body. So we may think that, oh, I have only material duty, but we not only have material duty, we have our spiritual duties as well to engage in devotional service. So bhajanti can be applied to Krishna only, whereas worship can be applied to demigods or even to any other living entity who is worthy of worship. He's a great personality. He's done many good things, great things. So then avajananti. Krishna is saying that avajananti mam muda. He says this in Bhagavad Gita. Only fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Lord Krishna. So Krishna is saying that when he's coming to the material world in his Sham Sundar form, in his two-armed form, that's his original form. God's original form is two-armed, Sham Sundar, blackish blue complexion, he wears a peacock feather, he plays the flute. But when he comes, then fools say, no, he's not God, he's like one of us. So Krishna is saying when we say that, we are being foolish. When we are not able to understand that he's God and instead we think, oh, he's like one of us, maybe just a little better than us, maybe just a great personality. Krishna is saying we are foolish then because we are not able to understand Krishna's position. And so, and then in that, and already if we misunderstand Krishna's position, and in that position, then we try to write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. So then, because we will be misguided, then we are going to misguide others. So we need to hear the Bhagavad Gita from the pure devotee, because the pure devotee understands Krishna. He understands Krishna's position. So we spoke of that. And Krishna, Sham Sundar, who's as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower-garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahmajyoti. So the Brahmajyoti, the Brahman effulgence, the light, that is Krishna's bodily luster. That's the effulgence which is coming from Krishna. Just as the sunlight is coming from the sun planet, in our houses, the light is coming from the bulb. So similarly, this light of the Brahman, the Brahmajyoti, is coming from Krishna's body. Krishna is known as Govinda, Vasudev. Yeah. And he has loving relationships. Child, husband, friend, master. And Krishna is saying that one who is always conscious of Krishna's these features is the highest yogi. So understanding Krishna, Krishna's opulences, Krishna's transcendental qualities. Krishna has many, many transcendental qualities. Krishna has all the opulences. The opulences like fame, knowledge, strength, beauty, wealth, renunciation. So then how we can come to this point? Prabhupada is saying those who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, one will understand one will understand what the Vedas are saying. Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha guru. Having implicit faith means equal faith, both in the pure devotee and in Krishna. A firm faith in the pure devotee and Krishna. And by this, we will be able to understand all the Vedic literature, all the Vedas, the knowledge will be revealed to us automatically. So bhakti, yeah, Prabhupada is saying this is pure devotional service. Bhakti means there is no desire. As Srila Rupa Goswami says, there is no desire to enjoy the material world. There's no desire for liberation. There's no desire to get the siddhis, ashta siddhis. That is pure devotional service. So one should come to this point of pure devotional service, come to engage the mind and always thinking of Krishna. Krishna is saying this in the Bhagavad Gita. He's telling all of us, come, rise to this platform and become the highest yogi. The yogi means he's in samadhi. So the bhakti yogi, he takes all sorts of activities, but his mind is engaged in Krishna. And so his consciousness is in Krishna, and based on that, he does all the other activities. It's not that he's just sitting in one place. No, he's undertaking all the activities for the pleasure of Krishna. Hearing, chanting, remembering, cooking for Krishna, cleaning for Krishna, worshipping Krishna, preaching Krishna's words. He may be doing his material duties for the pleasure of Krishna. Everything he's doing it to please Krishna. And Krishna is telling us, come to this platform. This is the highest yogi, the bhakti yogi. So this brings us to the end of the 6th chapter. Are there any questions or comments?
Nothing as such.
So bhakti yoga, it begins, devotional service begins by? How do we begin devotional service? Begins by hearing and chanting.
And chanting.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So our spiritual life actually begins when we start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That's the beginning of spiritual life. And when we actually take up the process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. All the Shastras are telling us to come to this point. Begin the chanting. We continue hearing. We continue hearing because that will give us the strength to chant, to understand why we are chanting. So hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting. Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. So this chapter 7 to chapter 12, these are the parts where Krishna is speaking about bhakti. In the 6th chapter, he's saying, come to the rise of bhakti, He's saying, take up bhakti yoga, become a devotee. Now, in this 6 chapters coming on, he is specifically speaking about bhakti, about his position, Krishna's position, about our position, and how we engage in devotional service. Sri Bhagwan Vachan.
Shri Bhagwan Uvacha.
Mai asakta manapartha.
Mai ashakta manapartha.
Yogam yunjan mad ashraya.
Yogam yunjan mad ashraya.
Asamshayam samagram mam.
Asamsayam samagram mam.
Yatha gyāsyasi takshanu.
Yatha dhyansyasi tacharno. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pratha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. In this 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in all opulences and how, He manifests such opulences is described herein. Also, four kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna and four kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna are described in this chapter. In the first six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul capable of elevating himself to self realization by different types of yogas. At the end of the sixth chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahma Jyotir or localized Paramatma realization is not perfect knowledge of the absolute truth because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimate knowledge beyond any doubts. Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahma Jyotir and Paramatma in full. By practice of Krishna consciousness yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, the material nature, and their manifestations with paraphernalia. One should therefore begin yoga practice as directed in the last verse of the sixth chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam is the first and most important. The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tak Charnu, or hear from me. No one can be a greater authority than Krishna, and therefore, by hearing from him, one receives the greatest opportunity to become a perfectly Krishna conscious person. One has therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non devotee upstart puffed up with academic education. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this process of understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is described in the second chapter of the first canto as follows. Shanvatam Swa Katha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hriday Antasto He Abhadrani, Vidhunti Surat Satam. Nasta prayesu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki tada rajas tamo bhava kama lobhadaya chache cheta ithir anavidham stitam सत्वे प्रसिद्धति एवं प्रसन्न मनसो भागवत भक्ति योगता भागवत तत्व विचननम मुक्त संगस्य जयते विदयते हृदया ग्रंथिस छिद्यन्ते सर्व संशया छियन्ते चस्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवा manisvare. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literature or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of Asam Sayam Samagram understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
So here, so Krishna said in the previous verse that become the highest yogi. The highest yogi is one who's always engaging in devotional service, who is abiding in me, engaging in transcendental loving service, or is always has his mind fixed on me, always thinking of Krishna. Now, Krishna is saying that when you engage in devotional service, you can know me in full, free from doubt. And Krishna is saying a very important word in this, Takshrinu, hear, hear, O Arjuna. So Krishna is saying, you hear from me. Now, what we are hearing, who we are hearing from, whole day we are hearing. But Krishna is saying, hear from me. Krishna is the original authority. So we need to hear from Krishna. Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna. So hear from Krishna or his pure devotee, not from the professional reciters, because professional reciters don't know Krishna, don't know God. So they will not be able to tell us the real knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So devotional service, as we said, begins by hearing and chanting. Hearing, we continue to hear, we continue to chant. So Prabhupada is explaining the first six chapters of Bhagavad Gita. The living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul. So we are not the body, we are spirit soul. This is what Krishna is explaining to us. The second chapter, he says so much about the soul. And then in the fourth chapter also, he says, we are eternal. Never was there a time where I did not exist, nor you. So he's not speaking of the body. He's speaking about the soul. And Krishna is speaking about the different processes of karma yoga, gyan yoga, dhyan yoga to have. And he speaks about bhakti yoga also. He gives a hint of bhakti. He's telling us to come to the point of bhakti because he said that fix your mind on me. He's the highest yogi, one who's always abiding in me, who's always thinking of me within himself. He's saying, think of me and rendering transcendental loving service to me. So Krishna's words are very clear. We don't need to misinterpret his words and say, oh, something inside Krishna, something outside Krishna, something beyond Krishna. No, then that way we are misinterpreting Krishna's words. We simply hear what Krishna is saying and we follow. Krishna is saying, always think of me, engage your mind in thinking of me. So Krishna is a person. That's why he's speaking. And he's saying, think of me. He's not saying, think of the Brahma Jyoti. If he wanted that, he would have said that. If he wanted us to think something other than him, he would have said, you think of something inside me or outside me or beyond me, or think of the Brahma Jyoti. But he's not saying that. He's not saying think of the Paramatma. He's saying think of me. So we have to think of Krishna. He's a person. Because the Brahma Jyoti and Paramatma realization, they are partial realization of the absolute truth. The full realization is that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And that the Brahman is the effulgence, the bodily luster coming from him. And Paramatma is a feature by which he is pervading the entire universe. And he's also sitting in the heart of every living entity. So Krishna is saying, come to this point of complete Krishna consciousness. The Prabhupada is saying the different types of yogas are like stepping stones to come to the point of bhakti. Karma yoga, Gyan yoga, Dhyan yoga, they are like ladders which are bringing us to bhakti yoga. But of course, one who takes directly to bhakti, he knows, immediately he can know, understand what is the Brahma Jyoti, what is Paramatma. just by engaging in devotional service. One can get all what Gyan Yoga has to give, all what Dhyan Yoga has to give, all what Karma Yoga has to give by engaging in bhakti. We can understand who is the absolute truth. Who are we, the living entities? What is this material nature? What is the relationship between all? So Prabhupada is saying, so we should follow Krishna's instruction. Krishna is saying, you always think of me and then engage in loving devotional service to me. Prabhupada is saying then this devotional service begins by Shravanam. Therefore, Krishna is telling to Arjuna, Takshanu, hear from me. Hear from me. Krishna is the greatest authority. He is God. That's why we need to hear from Krishna. You see, when we are hearing from any other material person who is not speaking from the Vedas, then there may be misinterpretation. There may be personal, what do you say? Some form of imagination may be there, or some sort of misinterpretation is there. But that's why we hear from the devotees who are hearing from the scriptures, speaking from the scriptures. The scriptures, the original Vedas are spoken by Krishna himself. He is the greatest authority. Why Bhagavad Gita is given so much importance? Because Krishna is the greatest authority. That's why Bhagavad Gita is studied by so many different people of different faiths. And since 5,000 years, he spoke to Arjuna. Before that, he says he spoke it to Sun God, gave it to Vivaswan, gave it to Ikshvaku, like that. In disciplic succession, the knowledge was coming. So hearing in the disciplic succession to get the real knowledge. And Prabhupada is quoting this Bhagavatam verses, in which Bhagavatam is saying that hearing about Krishna, Shanvatam Swagata Krishna, Shanvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hridyantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti sufrit sata. Shanvatam Swakata Krishna, hear about Krishna. Hear from him or hear about him. From him, Bhagavad Gita. About him, Bhagavatam. This is devotional service. Then what happens when we are hearing about Krishna? And Krishna, who is in our heart, he is our best friend. What does he do? He purifies our heart. He's in our heart, so he cleans our heart. And then he gives us this transcendental knowledge. He helps us. And the more we hear about Krishna from Bhagavatam, from the pure devotees, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. He continues hearing and chanting. When one continues hearing and chanting, the modes of passion and ignorance, our anarthas, they go away. The lust, envy, anger, greed, those things which are very troublesome to the heart, they go away. They are wiped away. Krishna cleans. He takes away all these things. We continue hearing and chanting, brings us to the point of goodness, helps us surpass the point of goodness, brings us to pure goodness. Pure goodness is liberated platform. This is liberation. Then one understands, one continues to engage in devotional service. At that time, he's completely joyful. He's joyful, he's liberated, he's joyful, and he understands the science of Krishna properly. Thus, we can see how Bhakti Yoga, by engaging in Bhakti Yoga, by hearing and chanting, we can get out of this material world. Severs the hard knot of material affection, and we can understand the supreme absolute truth. So here from Krishna or from his devotee, in Krishna consciousness, and we can understand the science of Krishna. So we continue to hear and chant, hearing and chanting from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way we can get perfection. Is that okay?
Yes.
So we'll stop here for today. Shla Prabhupada ki jai, Shla Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Gita ki jai.
Thank you so much for listening and joining in.